after junior year, they find internship opportunity off campus, and that's where they develop all these connections with various research facilities like NIH and George
DMU. Georgetown has some. We have people in CIAP.
And then through the summer internship program, they find something that they're interested in, some research opportunity that they want to pursue, and then they bring it into TJ, and that's the good part about it because our tech lab offers this opportunity.
What I'm doing is I'm investigating a protein degradation pathway, so a way that proteins, when they're old or misfolded, they get cut up and their parts recycled. I'm looking at a specific pathway called the NN rule pathway, and this pathway has never been shown before in any gram-positive bacteria. And this summer I discovered evidence that there is this pathway in gram-positive bacteria. So now I'm spending my senior year looking more in depth, seeing like the molecular interactions that run this pathway. So I'm basically discovering a new pathway in a new organism, which is really cool.
COX-2 is in the pathway for tumor progression. We're trying to see whether quercetin inhibits COX-2 expression, and they've shown that it works in breast cancer cells. So we're trying to see if we can get similar effects in lung cancer cells to slow down lung cancer tumors.
We keep a lot of our equipment in here. It's sort of a common use room. So right behind you is our DNA sequencer. And so some of the students are doing things like sequencing various kinds of genes to look at things that they've engineered. For example, some of them are trying to put various kinds of genes into algae to make it produce more hydrogen, that type of thing. So we can check how many copies of the gene might be located in a certain organism.
The teachers are actually genuinely interested in the work the students are doing, and since the students are always doing new projects, the teachers themselves don't know the answers to the projects, and so the teachers collaborate with the students as this goes along. And so what I really like about the TJ environment is that the teachers enjoy the work that's being done. It's fantastic to see that the teachers themselves are so excited in promoting what's going on.
We are going down to a conference today in Crystal City where we're participating at the Office of Naval Research. Great opportunity to share with them the types of things that we're doing for STEM education. He was explaining our buoy system. These were his comments here, and he said it was unbelievable stuff. So those were the words of the president.
We're working with algae. Is the first thing you should know. We have tanks in the back, carboys, which are about 5-gallon tanks exposed to the light, and we can control the carbon dioxide level and levels of other nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus if we choose.
I took an AP Chem class last year too, and we did a project, a theoretical project. Our teacher assigned, if you were to do a project on reducing the nitrogen intake of algae, how would you do it? And after doing that background research for the project, I decided I wanted to try to actually do it senior year since it had been done somewhat before, but not the way that we were trying to do it.
It allows the students then, when they go off to college, to be familiar with the instrumentation that's being used in the laboratories, which I think is really helpful.
I'm in the computer systems lab. So I'll explain about my project once we get in there. But what I find great about computer systems is that since it's programming, you use your programming language to pursue any interest that you have. There's an issue, especially in cities and urban environments, that pretend you have a building here and GPS satellite is up here and your receiver is down here. And so the satellite emits a beam, it reflects off the building and hits the receiver right here. The GPS receiver doesn't know that it was reflected, so it puts you one street over as if it went straight. Right now what I'm doing is I'm writing a program that would account for those reflections, and sometimes there'll be multiple all over the place. And so my program will account for those reflections and then place the GPS receiver in the correct position.
I've been looking at the program we're using, and there are certain ways that we can make it better. So I'm basically starting from scratch and creating an entire scheduling program for our school. It's turned out to be so far not just something about working with technology and working about computers for me, but really getting used to the human component of research, having all those interactions, all those interviews, recording them, transcribing them, and distinguishing from those interviews what the real problems are and what needs to be done.
I'm interested in chess because I began playing chess when I was 6 years old. So I want to incorporate that in my project, so I'm using artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, as far as I'm concerned, means that you're trying to get the computer to exhibit signs of what we would call intelligence.
I don't know if you've been to the electronics lab or the prototyping lab or the computer systems lab, and I'm sure you'll go to all those places if you haven't been there, but basically we sort of take all those three, we implement them. Last year the game was basically basketball. So the robot had to drive around, pick up basketballs, and then shoot them into a basket. There are elements of building. We actually physically built the robot. We had to design the electronics. If you can see that jumble of wires, that's what actually controlled the motors on the robot. And then on top of that, we had to program it.
House that's going to sit on basically the Potomac River and kind of generate its own power. And what structures, like what type of structures should we use, wood or what type of wood, and how the soil bed is there. So a lot of work goes into that.
I had so far. And I want to work with just evolution and tracing that using skeleton pieces we have and implementing that into animations.
Here's a senior tech project, and instead of wiring up all the gates by hand, right, they're using a gate array, right, chip in here. These microphones, if we just average the signal coming in, right, we acquire it real well for signals coming in straight. But if we want to get a signal coming in from the side, if we want to form a beam and just listen to somebody over here, right, we're going to expect the sound wave to hit there, then there, then there, then there, then there. Okay, so what we're going to do is average, delay, and some averaging. So what he's doing it big right now. This is always better. So again, the sound wave would be, it would send out first on this one, then that one, then that one, then that, and the wave front heads that way.
That's a computer-controlled mill that will cut out almost any 3D shape out of almost any material that you want. We actually just got in that machine over there, the yellow and kind of off-white one, and that's an iron worker. So that allows us to cut and bend and form a very thick steel. There's a stress tester right there for this one, the metal one in front of us. That's hooked up to that computer, and you can test different materials, and it'll actually give you a stress strain graph, so you'll be able to see the different breaking points of different materials.
We were working on different ways that we could make a stable structure that's also collapsible so that we can move it through a doorway. And so we decided on planks of plywood that will be attached with hinges that can rotate around a hexagon that's on an axle. We're all CADing right now, which is basically the online program that we use to make all the schematics with dimensions and kinds of things.
So what will happen is when we build it, there's going to be a little rectangle that actually goes down this groove, so that when the axle turns, it'll actually turn the hexagon. And if you see, I have it in a way so that you can actually turn it, and you can see kind of the motion of the gear, I guess. And there's going to be another set of these at the bottom right here. And what we want to do is have the plywood boards kind of lie flush to each side of this, and hopefully the friction will be able to turn it. In Inventor, you can do stress testing where we could actually put loads on this while it's running and see exactly how much it can handle, where are the weak points.
One side is powered off of conventional energy systems, basic electricity, gasoline-powered electricity, and the other half is powered off of alternative energies, like the solar panels that are on top.
Nick Mattis over there and I are designing and constructing a solar rice cooker for third world adoption.
There was an unexpected storm in 2010 in about December on Saturn, and it was in the northern hemisphere. It actually occurred about 10 years early.
Here you have the start time and the stop time, and then it also gives the GOES class of the solar flare.
Be sure you put the source. On this one, that's very important because people can get confused on whether they're looking at a visible image of the sun or an infrared or an X-ray or UV.
And it's using imagery and analysis of the imagery to detect certain objects in a scene. So the camera or the sensor we were using was a hyperspectral sensor, which means that there is a spectra of the intensity values for different wavelengths for each individual pixel in a scene.
So in the new lab, which is, I think all the labs here are gearing up and sort of getting ready to move, we'll have a much larger more appropriate space to do real quantum optics experiments. We'll have 3 complete light-tight rooms, 6 other bays in which to do things. And usually in high schools, you just plain don't get to the fundamentals of quantum mechanics. You hear about some of the results of quantum mechanics in chemistry classes and other places, but it's been traditionally sort of treated as a sort of beyond the possible in high schools, where we have been in the process of changing that for some years. But we also want to be able to focus on quantum computation, quantum cryptography. That means high-grade optical benches, high coherence laser, quality, high coherent, reasonably stable laser. Solid-state laser costs somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 now. Right now, we just got the first one, actually, sort of this modern laser. So $15,000 laser comes in a box this big.